Your machines produce an incredible amount of data every day. The question is, does that data tell you exactly where your production is at a moment's notice? Or are you having to ask your employees to find answers for you? At Datanomix, we take that machine data and we convert it into what we call Fusion Factor. Fusion Factor is a real-time production score that's increasing the productivity and output of all of our manufacturing customers.
You could start by telling us a little bit about C&M and the history and how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So C&M is 40 years in business, celebrating 40 years this year, so very exciting time for us. Third generation business. My father and grandfather actually started the business together. But as time went on, my grandfather retired and I took over the business about 8 years ago. And when I did that, I started looking at how we were managing the business and really wanted to focus on driving decisions with data. And that was really a key for me in order to meet the strategic goals that we set forth in our plan about a year and a half ago.
Managing a business with data brought you to us. What is it about Datanomix that did you?
So definitely the people. I like working with you and Greg, and I think your team is really dynamic. I like the fact that you guys are data people and not necessarily tech people all the time, and obviously tech background, but I really like that your focus is on making information easy to absorb for people like me who aren't necessarily a data person. I like data, I like the information I can get from it, but a lot of times it can be confusing, and you guys provide a solution that is much more easy to absorb.
So the Datanomix Fusion platform presents you with some analytics. How do you use those analytics to run your company? Yeah, so there's some examples I can give you that it's already made an impact in our organization. From a tactical side, we look at some of the people on the floor. We've had issues with work counter alarms, and this was something that we saw in Fusion Factor, in the Twitter feed, if you will, that is there, and saw all the alarms that were popping up on these jobs, and there was work counter alarms. And we're saying, why do we always have work counter alarms? And one of the things when we started to investigate it, it said, people on the floor said that they would put work counters on there because chips would build up on tools. They didn't want the machine to crash and the tools to break, so they'd set it for 50 parts, and then they'd go over there and clean the chips off and start the machine again. But what would happen inevitably, because one person's running 3 machines or 4 machines, is that they'd have their head in another machine, the machine would go down on a work counter alarm, and they wouldn't be able to get back to it for, say, 10 minutes even, 20 minutes, whatever the case is. Right. The machine's sitting there idle, and we make money when the spindles are turning. Right. So we went in, we diagnosed the problem, and we actually had an employee that we engaged about the issue come up with a solution for it. And they said at their previous workplace, they used to come over with a brush after every 50 parts, brush off the tool, and the machine would continue to run, so there was no downtime. And what that did for this particular job that I'm speaking of, increased our throughput from 200 parts a day to 400 parts a day. Oh, that's great.
So huge impact. We talk from a higher level. We have a strategy. We're trying to grow the business. Labor's hard to find. When you're starting to make less parts, you increase your labor force to try and make up for that. We're looking at overall equipment effectiveness and how can we better utilize the people and the resources we have already here. And this is certainly one of those ways.
So there's a lot of talk about monitoring tools, Big Brother, watching employees as part of the process of measuring the factory output and production. What's been your experience with Fusion Factor by our company? Yeah, absolutely. That was a concern even when we started the conversations. We don't want employees to feel like we're watching them, and it's really not what this is about. This is a problem-solving tool, not a performance management tool. And that takes people, at my level and even the next level down to be able to really embrace that and live that. We can't use this as a performance management tool and really focus it on the machines. How are the machines performing, and really use the people's input from the floor to problem solve. We don't want to make this about the person, we want to make it about the piece of equipment, and that's really what's critical. And it really takes effort in order to be able to do that, and commitment from the management staff to be able to make sure that that's put in place, and you want to make sure that you live it.